welcome to my kitchen. I'm Katie King from Thermomixing with the Balanced Nutritionist and Family. Thank you for joining me now for a live demonstration of the latest Thermomix, the TM7. Hopefully you're in a nice, comfortable position because this is going to go for about 45 minutes. This is like having a demonstration in your home, except obviously you won't be able to taste the food. And normally if I come to your house and do a demonstration, I don't do any of the cooking, you do it all yourself. So today we're going to be cooking a dish together called Joe Witten's Wholesome Meatball Soup, which is one of my favorites. Let's start though with just having a little bit of a look at what the Thermomix looks like before we start putting ingredients into it. So obviously we've got our lid here, and then inside is our bowl, which is where most of the magic happens. Really sharp blades there, and you'll see how capable they are of chopping things and doing all sorts of tasks, within seconds. The lid is magnetized, so unlike the past models of Thermomixes, this one actually locks on via a magnet system. The bowl itself, this is interesting to watch, especially if you've seen past Thermomixes. We remove the knife blade like so, pull it out, and then you simply pull the bowl out, and you can actually put this mixing bowl into the dishwasher. You can actually put all the components into the dishwasher, lock the knife blade back on, and then pop your Thermomix on top. And then this section here can just be cleaned really easily, wiped down with a chucks. Obviously you don't want to get any moisture near your actual motor there. Okay, so that's the actual mechanics of the Thermomix. Pop our lid on. You've got to have this little handle line, this little lid section here lined up with the handle for it to click in. This is the Varoma. So if you're familiar with older models of the Varoma, this Varoma is much bigger. It's 45% more capacity in the brand new Varoma. And I must admit, I'm personally finding it to be, a bit more user-friendly, and I'm getting a lot more use out of it. It also has a tray insert there, which is probably in my dishwasher. But this just sits on top as well, so it really enables you to do multi-level cooking. So for example, you might be cooking meatballs in the bottom and then vegetables on top, or salmon in the top and broccoli underneath. So lots of different options there. I even steamed a cornbread in my Varoma the other day inside a tin. Lid just pops on there like that. The other component that comes with your Thermomix is your steaming basket. So this sits inside your Thermomix like so. The lid goes on top. All sorts of magic can happen in here. It just depends on the recipe. One of the things that I use my steaming basket for the most is for cooking rice and pasta, particularly rice. So 16 minutes, 120 degrees, lid on, anywhere between 150 grams and 350 grams of rice. You get nice fluffy rice. It doesn't stick to anything. It's just beautiful. Base recipe for things like mashed potato. You can even put your mince in here and make your sauce underneath. You mince here and then pop them together and you've got a beautiful spaghetti bolognese sauce. So lots of different uses for the steaming basket, but we won't be using that one today. And then of course, I suppose one of the most popular components of the TM7 bowl here is the same capacity as past models. It just looks bigger because it's got this lovely insulated cover over the top. So you can actually leave food in here for quite a while and it keeps it hot. Or if you were doing a sorbet or an ice cream, it would keep it cold. It's great because it also enables you to use two hands when the bowl is full, which helps because sometimes if you've got a full bowl, it's a lot of food in there, it can be quite heavy. And in the past, we've not been able to touch the bowl when it's super hot because obviously it will scald you. Okay, so one of the best things about the TM7 that people are absolutely loving is we've got this beautiful big screen, which is really like the size of an iPad, let's be honest, and lots of different modes here. So all I've done this morning is just literally turn mine on, and I've got a personalized display here. So you can personalize the display. I like it to have these little shortcuts here, and then I really like to see what I've got planned for the day. And then if we have a look here at show all, it'll show me my calendar of recipes that I plan to make for the whole week. So this was last week. These are some of the things that I cooked. Probably didn't cook all of them. Sometimes I get a bit ambitious or I want to decide at the last minute, but you get the idea. And obviously this platform integrates with the app that's on my phone as well. So if I'm out and about, I can have a look at what I've got planned. We also know that when we're searching for a recipe, let's say we're looking at these fritters, we can also add ingredients to our shopping list, and that takes us, let's just search for this nice versatile smooth soup. And if we click on here, we can add those ingredients to the shopping list as well. So that's really handy too. Once I've planned my entire week, I make sure that I've added all the ingredients that I'm gonna need to my shopping list. So I obviously make sure that all of my ingredients are added to my shopping list, and when I'm out and about, I've got my list on my phone, and I shop once a week for everything that I need. And that's how, one of the ways that you can save money with your Thermomix, being really organized, going to the supermarkets less often, and only buying what you need. But there's other ways you could save money with Thermomix, and we'll go through some of those later. But let's get cooking. So we have a look at the screen here. Let's have a look at all my planned recipes for the day. Has been a bit of an ambitious day because my girls are both in care and I've got the house to myself. So I have made a couple of things. I've actually got porridge on in the other Thermomix that I have over, sorry, not porridge, natural yogurt is fermenting. I'm making my own yogurt. But this is what we're gonna make today. We're gonna make Joe Witten's wholesome meatball soup. So we're just gonna press on that and we're just gonna start. So to begin this recipe, we actually make the meatballs from scratch. So the first thing we're going to do is lightly grease the aroma tray, which I've already done, and that's just so that nothing sticks to it. Now this is an example of how you should really save money with your Thermomix. Sometimes I don't have exactly the right ingredients. Didn't have any almonds today, so I'm just going to use macadamia nuts rather than go out and buy other nuts because these need using up anyway. I think they'll work absolutely fine. They're really just in here as a binder. So you can see the Thermomix weighs as you go. And it is accurate up to 1 gram. I don't need to say that I've weighed that because it's just going to tick it off as I go once I hit the desired weight or hit just over the desired weight. I'm not everyone's style of cook, but I'm not going to measure out a tablespoon of herbs. I'm just going to throw in about a tablespoon of herbs. Then we just want some salt and pepper. I know a lot of people are more exact when they cook. I tend to be a bit of a free spirit. Whatever works. If you're the opposite of me, I'm probably driving you nuts right now. So we've put all those ingredients in. We can tick them off. You don't have to tick them off. You can just press next. All right, now I'm going to put the lid on. Now, just be warned, this is going to be loud. We are milling nuts down to flour, so it's going to be quite loud. And we've got 10 seconds to do that. And the lid is going to unlock, the magnets are releasing, and you can see that we've actually milled that right down to a flour there, like a nut flour. Just a little bit of moisture in there because I just washed my bowl before and I obviously didn't dry it perfectly. But again, we're making meatballs, so it's not going to matter if there's a little bit of moisture in there. But you can see how we've got literally macadamia nut flour there. And then I'm going to add my beef mince. I believe it calls for so 1 egg's done. And then it's going to weigh the beef mince as I pop it in. So let's see. Perfect, so 510 grams. I think the packet said that was 509. So that's great. And it's ticking that off for me as I go along. So then we're just going to combine that together, and this is going to give us our meatball mix. But I'm just going to quickly mold these into little balls. And if you wanted to, you could put these on a tray and bake them in the oven. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. You don't have to follow every recipe exactly. So you can see with the Thermomix, we do make everything from scratch. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put the rest of the meatballs on the top layer, just so that I've got lots of room in between my meatballs, which is going to enable lots of steam to get through up to the aroma and really help with the cooking. I've just popped a bit of water in. You'll see I put enough water in to cover my blades. And I put 1 little drop of dishwashing detergent. And I'm going to put this on pre-clean mode. And I'm just going to put it on a short cycle. Okay, so we're halfway through the recipe. This has had raw meat in it. So I'm just going to give it a quick clean before we move on and make our soup. So yes, the Thermomix does actually clean itself. Okay, so the lid's going to unlock. You can see when it's unlocked, and you can see that all that kind of stuff has just loosened off the edge. So when you're using your Thermomix, you just want to make sure that the bits down the bottom don't have any water on them. So they're nice and dry before you throw it back on the base, because obviously that's where all I did then was I'm going to go back to the home screen. And then if I go back up here to my cooking center, I can bring that recipe back up and it's remembered where I'm up to. All right, so let's make the sauce now in the bottom of the bowl. So we're gonna pop in our onion, pop in a couple of garlic cloves, and then it's asked for some red capsicums. I'm gonna throw those in as well. You can see the size of the pieces that I'm popping in there. And you'll see it's all chopped that up quite nicely. A lot easier than doing it by hand, that's for sure. We're just going to scrape down the sides of the bowl there just to get everything back in. And it's asking us to add some lovely olive oil. So 30 grams, we'll just take that back to 0. Next step, we're going to cook that for 3 minutes, and it's going to take it up to 100 degrees. So this is like sauteing your onion and garlic like you would if you were doing it on the stove. Obviously the benefit with the Thermomix is that it's hands-free cooking. Okay, so it's ready to go now. Let's go back to the current step. We've done that. The lid's released. So as you can see, it smells lovely. It's just cooked off that onion, garlic, and capsicum. Whew. Okay, so now we've got to add some fresh tomatoes. So the reason why I love this recipe so much is because it literally is completely from scratch. You don't even use a tin of tomatoes. 800 grams, that's perfect. Yep, next. And we're going to chop that. There we go. That's beautifully chopped. And then we've got to add those mushrooms in. So 150 grams. I've probably got some extras, but I love mushrooms, so that'll be fine. Next, chop that. So we're going to add some tomato paste, 100 grams. Do have to add a bit of water here. Just 100 grams of water. 102, perfect. Chicken stock powder. So another thing that you can make from scratch in the Thermomix, your own stock pastes. So this is actually veggie stock paste. I didn't have any fresh chicken stock paste, but I make either chicken or vegetable stock paste every couple of weeks, and I just use them interchangeably. And I also freeze my stock paste in ice cube trays as well, so that they keep. I'm going to add some dried oregano again, so I'll pop that in. I'll just shake some in. I'm not too concerned about measuring it. Okay, honey, teaspoon of honey again. I'm just going to pop what I think looks like a teaspoon in. Perfect. And then a teaspoon of balsamic vinegar, so just a dash. Okay, lovely. So that's all done. You don't have to tick the ingredients off. You can just press next. All right, so then it's asked me to put the lid on, and it's told me to pop the Varoma in. I'm gonna pop the Varoma on top, so you can see that I haven't put the cap on the lid. So this is gonna heat up, and it's gonna go for 20 minutes. Now I always prolong the time on this recipe. I've done it lots of times by 5 minutes because I find that my meatballs are usually like a bit bigger than most people's because bigger meatballs, less rolling. So I just prolong it a little bit longer. And what's happening here is it's cooking down here. It's gonna be well over 100 degrees. In here, so it's bubbling away, it's cooking that beautiful sauce, and then up the top here it's cooking the meatballs. So the steam won't actually start coming out of the Varoma for probably about 5 minutes, but once this is well and truly going, there'll be steam going up and those meatballs will be beautiful and tender, ready to go in 25 minutes. What you guys are witnessing right now is what we call guided cooking, which is probably the most popular thing to do on your Thermomix. So guided cooking means that you're following one of the recipes that's actually designed for the Thermomix, and it's telling you exactly what to do. So it's foolproof. So there's two ways to do guided cooking. The first way to do guided cooking is there's a couple of hundred recipes built into every single Thermomix, okay? So you get them permanently and they're called collections. So we've got lots of different collections. We've got a vegan and vegetarian collection. We've got a low fat collection. We've got a basic collection where you've got your recipes for your stock pastes and basic doughs and that kind of thing. So you've got a couple of hundred of recipes that you can access just through your machine. The other way to do guided cooking is via Cookie Do, which is the online recipe platform that you can subscribe to. You receive 3 months free access to Cookie Do when you first buy a Thermomix, and then after that it's $89 a year. So I think I worked that out, it's like $6 a month or something like that. It's not that expensive when you consider that you're getting access to over 100,000 recipes. And there's always new recipes added to the Cookie Do application. So you might log into your app on your phone or your iPad and it'll say, hey, we just dropped a brand new collection. Here's 20 recipes with an Indonesian focus. So if we're looking at Cookie Do, I'm connected to Cookie Do at the moment. I could literally search anything. So let's search pizza dough because that's already in there as a memory. And there's lots of different options here for pizza dough. Okay, we could search muffins. Let's search muffins. And I'm not used to typing upside down. There you go, muffin. And we've got lots of different muffins here. This is not every muffin recipe that's available. I have filters in the background, so it only returns Australian recipes and it only returns recipes to me that are of a high rating. The reality is that you would literally be able to search for thousands of different muffin recipes, but you get the idea. Cookie Do is pretty smart too, because the more you cook with the Thermomix, the more it gets to know you. So it knows that I like certain types of recipes. So when I jump into my app, it'll suggest things to me that I haven't tried before, because it'll say, you know, we think that you like this, which is pretty cool. So we're going to plate this up now. So when we're lifting the Varoma lid, we want to make sure we lift like that, not like that, because otherwise you'll get a steam burn. So these are obviously nicely steamed. And we're just going to pop them into the thermal serving bowl to keep them nice and hot. And they smell lovely. So if I was cooking this to serve up to my family now, I probably would have added some greens or something like that on the top tray when there was about 10 minutes to go. Just to add some extra vegetables to the meal. I'll be popping this in the dishwasher, so that's dishwasher safe. And then this is the lovely sauce underneath here. So all made from Whole Foods. Nothing, you know, no tin tomatoes or anything like that in there. Again, I can use both hands to lift that up, and I'm just going to pour that over the top of the meatballs. And then I'm just going to throw a bit of fresh parsley over that. And that's dinner done, which is great. Pop the lid on. Okay, so just while this finishes cooking, I'm going to show you manual modes now. So we've had a little bit of a look at guided cooking and Cookie Do and the meal planner aspect of the Thermomix as well. If we click on this little icon here, the blades icon, we get to see all of the different manual modes. So pre-clean, I've already talked about that briefly, but designed to clean your Thermomix. Dough mode, so that's what we'd be using if we were making breads, pizza dough, focaccia, croissants or anything like that, even pasta dough. Browning is our high heat mode, so it takes the bowl up to 160 degrees. Think, you know, cooking chicken breasts or pork fillet, or, you know, doing a quick vegetable stir fry. That's what you're going to use your browning mode for. Steaming is what we're using at the moment. So we're bringing steam up into the Varoma and cooking in the bowl at the same time. Turbo actually enables us to make our own things like mince. So for example, if you wanted to make pork mince that was really high quality, you could get your pork fillet or your pork steak, cut it into chunks, throw it in there, turbo it for 1 or 2 seconds, and that will literally mince your meat. So there's a sanchow bao recipe, for example, that I love that uses pork fillet, and you make your own mince before you actually make sanchow bao. You can also make breadcrumbs and that kind of thing. Blend is what we'd use for smoothies and sorbets, that sort of thing, or even blending a sauce. Egg boiler mode is one of my absolute favorite modes. We can't actually get into it because we're currently running another recipe. But it gives you the option to cook eggs in their shells from soft, so dippy eggs, right through to hard boiled. And if you've got little kids who love dippy eggs, the most stressful thing to cook is literally dippy eggs and toast, because if you're 10 seconds wrong either side on the stove, you've stuffed it up. Whereas with Thermomix, I just set it to extra large eggs, I set it to medium soft, and it's perfect every time. Nice runny yolk for dipping soldiers in and a cooked white on the outside. Open cooking is a mode that's brand new to the Thermomix, and it's really neat. It basically means that we can take the lid off and continue cooking. So think if you're doing your sauces, or perhaps if you were cooking a pasta dish or something like that, and you had the blades at a low speed, you can cook with the lid off, give it a little stir, come back to the Thermomix every couple of minutes, give it a taste, season as you go. It's a really exciting innovation exclusive to the TM7. Kettle mode is literally using the Thermomix to replace a kettle. So if you didn't want to have a kettle, that's another appliance that you can replace with the Thermomix. Also really useful if you want to do a deep clean. Use kettle mode, a little bit of citric acid, and warm it up, and that also cleans your bowl really well. Warm up is, let's say I cooked this in the morning and then I put it in the fridge, and then I wanted to warm it up for dinner that night. I could literally pop it back in the bowl and warm it up very quickly. Rice cooker mode is literally replaced, like using it like a rice cooker. So cooking your rice, any type of rice, works beautifully. So that's one of your manual modes as well. Thickening for thickening sauces. Slow cooker mode for slow cooking dishes. Fermentation. So I'm currently making yogurt using fermentation method in my TM6, my other Thermomix, because it takes 8 hours to make yogurt. Sous vide, I'm not going to go through this. This is like a bit more of a chefy kind of mode. And then peeling, grating, slicing, spiralizing. These are modes that will probably come when other accessories are released for the TM7. So manual cooking is what you would use if you were following a non-cookie dough recipe, or a recipe that hadn't been adapted for the Thermomix. When we're using guided cooking, so recipes that are built into the Thermomix or on cookie dough, everything's already pre-programmed. So for example, right now we're using steaming method, but we didn't manually select that. If you were making bechamel sauce, and you were using guided cooking, it would automatically use the thicken mode. Manual mode is also quite handy as well. Manual mode I just got out of that. Manual mode literally just enables you to select your time and your speed and your temperature, and just, grate for chopping. So for example, if I just quickly wanted to grate some cheese, I'd select manual mode, 5 seconds, speed 8, throw 200 grams of cheese in there, and it would grate the cheese for me to buy grated cheese. Or if you wanted to just chop some veggies really, really quickly to throw, to do on the stove or something, you could do that. So just telling me that it's ready to go. So before we plate up this dish, I'll just go through the investment for the Thermomix. So the TM7 is $2,649. There's a number of different ways to pay, and sometimes there are timed offers. So I'm just going to go through the finance or the ways to pay that are generally available all of the time. So obviously you can pay up front on credit card, and also use Afterpay, which is 4 installments as well. Also, you can earn your Thermomix. So if you don't want to pay, but you desperately really want a Thermomix, you can come on board as a consultant. 6 sales will give you your Thermomix at no cost. Sometimes people come on for a short time just because they want to earn their Thermomix, and that's it, and that's fine. And then other times they love it and they stay on board and they keep consulting. Earn your Thermomix with your time. You don't have to spend money on it. You can also get your Thermomix on Hum Finance. They offer a 24-month interest-free payment option. There is no establishment fee. There is a $9.95 account keeping fee, and you can pay it off in anywhere between 3 and 24 months. If you pay it off earlier, there's no extra fees attached to that. So if you really want a Thermomix and you can't necessarily pay it up front, the best way to do it is probably a finance option. and start thinking about the ways you're going to save money using the Thermomix. So you're going to be way more organized because you've got an inbuilt system for shopping and planning your food. You're cooking everything from scratch, so you're not paying $8 for a loaf of banana bread anymore. You're paying, $2 because you're making it yourself in less than 5 minutes. It's just one example. Using whole food ingredients as well, which is not only going to be better for your wallet, but also just better for your health too. So we know that the Thermomix on average saves a typical family about $50 a week. So you can redirect the savings you're making using a Thermomix to a payment plan and pay it off reasonably quickly. And with only a $9.95 monthly fee, I think the finance option's really great. But obviously there's lots of different options there available to you as well. So if you've really enjoyed watching this video, please leave your comments. Reach out to me via my Facebook page is probably the best spot. So Thermomixing with the Balanced Nutritionist and Family. Direct message me there. My mobile number is 0422 888 114. We can get you set up with a TM7 if you're interested. We can also get you set up with an in-house demo if you're on the Sunshine Coast or Brisbane and you want to actually feel, touch and drive the Thermomix yourself. And otherwise, if you've just got some questions left over, we can do a phone call or we can do an actual virtual demonstration tailored to you to answer your questions. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys, and I've really loved sharing the TM7 with you.